and welcome to Face to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Niresh Eliyatambi. Last Tuesday, that's the 18th of August, a landmark trial began in the US state of California, where 29 US states out of the 50, 29 US states are suing Meta, which of course owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Threads, and so on. What are they suing Meta for? A lot of things. But principally, they are alleging that Meta knew of the harmful effects of its products on children and deliberately concealed that knowledge and deliberately targeted child users and hooked them and made them addicted to social media. Now, this is of course a massive case, because if the judgment goes against Meta, then not only Meta but all social media platforms will be held to account and will be required to change their products. And there are a number of initiatives which the states are asking for, so that in particular the manner in which children can access social media will change forever. To discuss all this, I have with me an expert on cybersecurity and AI policy, Mr. Asela Waidyalankara, who has appeared on Face to Face several times. Good evening and welcome back to the show.
Good evening, Niresh, my old friend. How are you?
Excellent. And this is, of course, an astonishing development, but it was a long time coming. Social media has been in existence for decades, and we all know that it's addictive to both adults and children. It has harmful effects. We know of those effects. There's been a lot of research on this. And there have been moves by countries like Singapore, like the European Union, the UK, Australia, trying to curb the access of minors, of those under 15 or 16, to social media, with some mixed results. Children do find a way, adults find a way, so children definitely do, because they use their imagination for it. Now, this case is firmly pointing the finger at Meta and, of course, therefore at other social media platform companies. What is your opinion on this, Asela? Where do you see this going? And is it a natural progression of the law in the case of, the mushrooming of social media?
Again, interesting as always, an interesting point you bring out. So this allegation against social media companies pointed at, perhaps the larger chunk of that, pointed at Meta.
Let me hasten to add that Meta has denied the allegations.
Indeed, and I want to also on record add, Meta denies all allegations, and it is of course contesting the claim. I think if we look at social media, it's been around for, I believe, 2 decades now. So there has been some correlations made in terms of mental health, in terms of what we call dopamine addiction, in terms of screen time, and then its harmful effects. The jury is still out on that. And yet, as you mentioned, certain countries have proactively taken certain measures on it. Now, when I look at this particular case, it's important that it's coming from the US, because you have to understand most of these organizations are based in the US. And this is a problem countries like us are having, because although we try to legislate certain things, or we try to mandate certain controls, it's very difficult for them to get to agree to these things and to actually implement these things, because, let's be fair, our bargaining power with these agencies or these organizations is fairly limited.
Indeed, Meta itself, I think, has a value of something like $1.5 trillion.
And the entire Sri Lankan GDP is 100 billion. So I'll stop there. Right. So and okay, it's not numbers per se. If you take even the amount of people online, I believe the latest statistics place it at about 11 million. Right. So if you take even in terms of market size, it's not substantial for them. Put it in plain English, they can afford to lose Sri Lanka, and it wouldn't even register for them. So that we have this asymmetry when we are dealing with these platforms, and I think this is also a matter of concern for countries like us when we are dealing with. But coming back to the point, so this has been contested for a long time, and the same allegation now is extended to even AI platforms. To be fair, at least there is some semblance of child protection technical measures within social media platforms, but I would argue there is little to none in terms of AI platforms like Claude or ChatGPT, because they're open platforms. You can literally ask them anything, and it's not a child-safe answer that will come out, because they will answer. So in a natural language, that's what they're built for. So probably, I think, like you said, this is a natural progression of public interest litigation coming in to sort of look at these areas and see where it can be curbed or controlled. I think similar conversations were, and we were having this off camera, around tobacco. And as you know, even now tobacco is not banned, although certain countries are thinking of generational bans, quote unquote. Yet it's still available, but we've put controls on it. That being said, Dinesh, I know it's tempting to look at this and say, look, countries ABC have done it, then perhaps let's think about banning social media for children also. So that is probably, and I'm sure there's a question coming from you, so I'll stop there, but perhaps we should be a little more measured when we're trying to do that.
Right. So the obvious question there is that social media is not all bad. For example, companies use WhatsApp groups. Schools use WhatsApp groups. Sports teams
use
in
WhatsApp
schools
groups, yes.
use WhatsApp groups saying the match is at 9 o'clock, please be, practice is at this time, and so on. So social media per se, you can't just ban it outright, even for children. It will have effects which will not be completely what you expect. So,
if I may add one more thing, I think we discount the fact, perhaps it's a tragedy, I'm not saying it isn't, but we discount the fact that children's social structures is now built on digital spaces. You and I, we predate the internet. I know we sound like dinosaurs, but we predate the internet. So we formed social relationships outside digital spaces.
We had a life before the internet.
Put it mildly, yes.
And we still do.
We still do.
Yes. If the internet were to disappear, we will
make do. Well, yes, of course, indeed. And I suppose one of the most enjoyable activities is still to have a chat like this. That being said, if you take children of a certain age, they've grown up with the internet, high-speed internet. We call them the digital natives. Now, these young women and young men, their entire social strata and structure is built on social media and social media spaces. Of course, that points to another thing, and I'm not an architect, but the death of the third space, which probably, Niresh, you're a great fan of, which is home and place of work or place of studying, and third place. Third place used to be the playground. There is no playgrounds anymore. Third place used to be, golf face. No one's at golf face. I did a walk very recently. I was disappointed to see no children there. So the third place has become social media. So I would caution, if you're trying to take all that away, you are actually dismantling their social strata, their social networks, put it that way, and their entire social relationships, because it's all built there.
So that's going to cause
quite a stir,
to put it mildly.
Put it mildly.
It would cause many youngsters to have psychological problems.
Indeed,
perhaps.
Indeed, and we are social creatures. Again, I'm talking from a tech point of view, but we are social creatures. We need some interaction with other people.
Yes.
And this is what, in essence, social media stimulates. You can talk to people. The tragedy for them, if from our point of view, is that they're doing it online. So if you are going to take that space away from them, you are disrupting their entire social fabric. So I don't think anyone speaking about this really considered that aspect of it. Because this conversation about let's ban social media, my counter question to most parents, teachers, educators is, being an educator myself, is, have you asked the children? Because I don't think we have. We as adults, all of us, we are making decisions on behalf of a generation who is digitally literate than us. Simply put.
And 10 years from now, if we do ban it now, 10 years from now, they would turn around and say, you guys were really stupid, perhaps.
I don't think it will take 10 years. Let me give you another example. When the Aragale was happening, at various points, social media was banned.
Yes.
And yet, I don't think any of us found it any difficult to reach social media. Why? We went on a VPN. Why? We found a way to do it. Now, couple that with children being more digitally literate than all of us, are you telling me that they won't find a way?
They will find a way.
Australia is finding out right now.
Yes.
They introduced these measures, but they found like 80% of kids are still online. In UK, they introduced the age verification. These chaps went around putting action figures in front of the age verification so that it fools the system. They're very clever. And I'll give you one stat which I think we should reflect on. The 2024 census came out. A section of it talks about digital literacy. Digital literacy for 15 to, I think, 24-year-olds is in the high 90th percentile. Across the board. It doesn't matter if it's rural, urban, estate, it doesn't matter. It's in the high 90th percentile, whereas the national average is about 60, 67. You see where I'm going with this, right? They're far more mature, advanced when it comes to these platforms. So does that mean we don't think about curbing it or discussing with them certain measures? Yes, we should. But I think an outright ban is bringing a sledgehammer that requires a little more nuance. That's just my opinion.
Absolutely. But now you mentioned the tobacco cases. And this case which started a few days ago is about whether Meta knew that its product, and social media is
a product. Yes, of course.
Facebook is a product.
Of course.
That the product was harmful and addictive, and they designed it to be addictive to children, which is exploiting children. So there are laws against that. So this is where Meta, if they lose this case, might get a thumping fine, which would perhaps cause them to bring in, of their own volition, bring in safeguards. But also the states, the 29 states, are asking for various safeguards. So what do you think of that? And some of these safeguards are very interesting. For example, the like button. And that's something that, whether you're a child or an adult, you post something and you want people to click like. It's psychological.
It's a metric of success for them.
Yes.
That's the issue.
Yes. So one of the conditions that the states are asking is that the like button is to be taken off. Now, these are, of course, aspects which have to be gone into, but is it, is it surprising to you that this has come around?
It isn't. I mean, even us, when we look at certain features, so like is one thing, but in the order of magnitude, I would leave it at a lower thing. If you look at things like unlimited scrolling, so basically the feed doesn't stop. You don't hit an end. And that's called unlimited scrolling. You can just scroll on and on. For example, Instagram and TikTok both have unlimited scrolling. You can just scroll on and on and on, and which is why all of us end up hours of time wasted in this little vacuum that you don't know existed, and suddenly when you come out of it, hours have passed. So that's unlimited scrolling.
You could take a bus from here to Jaffna and
you wouldn't even
scroll
bat an
the whole
eyelid.
time.
Yes. But that's one thing. The other one is autoplay videos. So you're not making an effort to play the video. In fact, the video,
as it comes on your screen,
as it comes on your feed, it starts autoplaying. So that with what they call dopamine-inducing algorithmic behavior, meaning that dopamine, again, not a doctor, but dopamine is happy hormone. When you see things, you get happy. And basically what some of these companies have done is consulted experts, even psychologists, to make their product more appealing. Now, to be fair to Meta, they're not the only ones who've done this in Silicon Valley. Game designers, game houses, so online games on PlayStation, all of that. So they've actually taken psychologists to make sure that their game is in some way or form addictive or immersive, let's put it that way. So it's not just something that Meta has done, to be fair to them. But this is a accepted practice in Silicon Valley, where most of these products and services are coming from, Nilesh. Then you have, things that you do to just continue being engaged with the platform. So that's why you have two feeds. One, maybe the feed that's the story, and the other one that goes this. So you have multiple feeds on the scrolling, things like that. So one could argue, even in the lens of this case, all of this is done to make your platform addictive. One could also argue, look, I'm trying to make this as engaging as possible for the user. So which is why we are all very interested to see how this case pans out. But let's be frank, all cards on the table. This is a business. They are trying to maximize shareholder value. They are trying to become, at one point they were $1 million companies, now they're $1 trillion companies. Just like the AI bubble, which we see happening around us. These companies have been around for 2 decades. They want to continue to make money. And they will, at times, take any measures possible to make more profits.
Yes.
And I'm leaving it there. And I'm sure that the other question is...
Well, the question is making money ethically. And this is something that capitalism is perhaps to blame here.
Exactly.
Because capitalism doesn't really tell you that you need to make money ethically, from the oil industry to everything else. It's making money.
Take your pick.
But you mentioned the tobacco cases, and this was in the 1980s. And what brought the tobacco industry under control was the fact that cases were filed against the tobacco giants in the US, which alleged that the tobacco companies had done research and had conclusive proof within their companies that smoking caused lung cancer and was addictive and so on. And it was that which they were charged with, and finally broke the back of that industry. Of course, they promptly went off to China and sold their cigarettes. And,
which is the question. I'm sorry, yes. Probably not the standard practice here to ask the interviewer questions, but did tobacco fail? because look, you can buy a pack of tobacco. Again, this
Yes.
is not condoning any of that, but you can buy a pack of tobacco. Only thing, there's a health warning. So a couple of years ago, actually, when I was teaching my students, this is something I said, probably going forward, there will be some kind of health warning. To be fair, the Surgeon General of the US has said something like that, along those lines, that this should carry a health warning
Yes, indeed.
in terms of screen time and managing that and all of that.
Yes.
So perhaps we're seeing, let's wait and see. We can't predetermine what's going to happen in this particular case.
Yes.
Let
But-
me remind
but,
you,
know,
Meta has an excellent legal team.
I'm sure it would be
Better than
one
big
of the
tobacco.
best. Yes.
Better than big tobacco in the 80s. So we don't know. But that being said,
But
if
then
it comes.
what did happen with big tobacco was that controls were brought in.
Indeed.
They were banned from advertising in sports. So all
Indeed.
those tennis tournaments that they sponsored,
Gone.
had to turn around and get new sponsors. And of course, the warnings on the packs and so on. And in the end, we saw tobacco use reducing. And take Sri Lanka, for example. When I was a young man, all the young men smoked. It was just the thing to do. But nowadays, youngsters don't smoke much at all. So, so
And
it
the
has
health
an
warnings and all of that has
it
helped.
Yeah.
But let me perhaps reflect on the fact that, again, I point to their sheer size. Most of these companies are trillion-dollar companies. And now they're equated and treated at times like states. So I'll give you the closest example.
I mean, they're bigger than states.
They're bigger than states. So the G7 summit, the tech CEOs, AI and all of these guys, they were treated in equal protocol to the G7 leaders. So in fact, when we teach international relations and we sort of try to figure out the cyber diplomacy part, there was a question. Does this mean that they're equal to states? I mean, perhaps you're reading too much into it, but in that backdrop, let's say even something like this comes. I'm being pragmatic here. How much of an effect that would have is a question mark in my mind. And I'll point back to another thing. If you remember Cambridge Analytica,
Yes.
that particular case was, again, Facebook at the time, they were not Meta, was a watershed moment for them. They brought in certain controls, but to be fair, from now to then to now, that platform has grown.
So the Cambridge Analytica case was that Facebook had sold its information on users
To third parties.
to
manipulate their...
then used to manipulate elections and all kinds of things.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So part of it is okay. Yes, maybe there's controls, maybe there's guardrails that's come in. But would you see a decline equivalent to what happened to big tobacco? I don't know, because the amount of money, to be fair, the quantum of money that we're talking about here within these companies are far larger than tobacco can ever imagine. So this is why I pause. And don't forget, most of these companies, including Meta, are leading the AI wave also, on the other hand.
Absolutely.
So they have disproportionate bargaining power. So, I mean, yes, this is all good, and I'm sure something may come of it. But again, is it going to create the friction that you and I want? I don't know.
Yeah, so also when it comes to tobacco and social media, as you pointed out, social media is required now for many industries, for officers, for children, and so on, for the education, all that. With cigarettes,
it was recreational. Yes,
it was just,
so this I mean, not unfortunately, but it's woven into our lifestyle.
Yes,
and it is far more enveloped in what we do than tobacco could ever imagine. Tobacco was something you did recreationally or as a community, but this is far more. There's aspects of this that are important. For example, small businesses run on it.
Oh,
For
absolutely. Yes.
for example, kids would learn certain STEM skills from it. For example, now Meta is exposing their AI tools to developers, whoever is on their platforms, for certain things. So that part, can you argue with that part? And again, when we talk about screen time, I often ask, look, what screen time are we talking about?
How much is too much?
Well, let me put it a different way. You want kids to learn STEM. I'm sure any parent here would want their kids to be interested in STEM or learn STEM. Okay, that's also screen time. Then there's social media, which, yes, I think we all agree it's bad. That's also screen time. So I think first we need to understand good screen time and bad screen time. And what do we manage? See, I think onus also is, we like to outsource this problem to the state as parents. But I think onus is on folks as well to learn a little bit about the parental controls of a platform. To be fair, YouTube has a decent kids control parental control platform. If you enable those things, you can actually give your device to a child, and you'll be reasonably all right. I'm not saying it's great, but it's reasonably all right. So the other platforms are the same. The problem I point back to is parents' digital literacy is far less than the children's digital literacy, which has compounded this problem. And now we look to the state for a solution because we cannot do it in our own family.
A lot to think about indeed. We need to take a short commercial break right now. I am with Asela Waidyalankara. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Face to Face. I am with Asela Waidyalankara. Now, Asela, you started talking about parental controls. And you pointed out that children are so much more sophisticated, knowledgeable when it comes to any type of technology. It's like the old VCR, the video cassette recorder. When it appeared, our fathers were flummoxed by it. What were all those buttons? And but we pressed the buttons, figured it out, and then we knew more than they did. So it's the same principle that youngsters are willing to explore, and they have the time as well. Parents have to work and so on. So how effective can parental controls ever be?
Okay, let me put it this way. They are better than no controls.
Yes, absolutely.
And
agree.
most of the time, right now, we give a device to a youngster without any controls. At least some controls are better than no controls in terms of, okay, screen time is 3 hours. After 3 hours, you can't access those apps. Okay. Or there's ways, for example, if you identify the child as below a certain threshold, certain unlimited scrolling, those features can be switched off. So that you have to go to the settings and you need to sort of learn it yourself and maybe switch off some of those things. So I'm not saying this is a panacea. It will basically solve everything, but it's a start. And the fact that we don't do that is where when I talk to parents, I say, look, have ground rules, and technology control is just part of it. Have ground rules. Look, screen time is X. No taking the phone to bed, right? Yes, if you need it for these activities, fine. But after that, it's back with me or it's with us. So ground rules. Now, ground rules come with enforcement, and that's your style of doing things. And I can't preach. One family is different from another. Different people are busy different ways. But at least you enforcing that in some way or form would be helpful. So to answer your question, no, it's not going to help completely. But that being said, it's a start. And I think we should think about that.
Interesting. And I think you're absolutely right. It's not just about the controls, it is about parents actually getting in there and parenting, which seems to happen less and less these days, but that is the world that we live in. It's global.
Indeed.
Now, you mentioned the huge disparity between digital literacy of youngsters versus the older generation. Is there a solution there? Now, has anyone really sat down and thought about making the older generation a little more digitally literate? Because, it's not rocket science anymore. There was a time, 20 years ago, you sit an older gent or lady in front of a computer, it's very complicated. Let's say before Windows, okay? I mean, it was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. DOS was a nightmare.
Even for young people,
Yes.
it was difficult. But now, after Windows came in, and that, when did that come in? About 30 years ago, things got much simpler. So, I would put it to you that even a person in their 60s, 70s can easily learn a lot more when it comes to digital literacy, if they're actually taught.
Indeed, and probably there's two parts to this. One is I'll first tackle the kids part. They are more literate, but probably they are not more responsible.
Yes.
So there's concepts we have. Okay, you have access to the platform, you know how to use the platform, which is literacy, but you may not understand all of the nuances around it, which is what ideally a school curriculum should do. You must teach the concepts like digital citizenship, where that encompasses, Niresh, a lot of things. Privacy, being respectful online, which we don't see much of, to be very frank now. And so many other aspects of life online. Now, at the moment, I think there is a discussion ongoing where we're trying to introduce some of these things into school curricula. But that's a long discussion. But it should start there because honestly, these are fundamental concepts that we need to teach. Now, for example, at a certain point in our school careers, we were taught how to cross the road, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, and how to
look
follow.
Right, left, and right.
Right, left, and right, and cross the road and cross only at the crossings, which none of us do now. But we were taught. There were certain civic sense markers that were taught in us in school. The point we take now is, look, similarly, we need to pick up that and teach certain digital civics, with lack of a better word, for kids, which is encompassing their part, digital citizenship. For the adults, it's a different ballgame altogether because the terminology we use, the way we approach it, how we teach is completely different. And I agree, it's not that we can't. And to be fair, all of these are multi-headed problems that come with the same cause of not understanding digital space. Scams is one thing. Because if you have an awareness of, okay, what platforms are, what's good, what's bad, what's a phishing link, not, maybe you won't click on everything that comes your way. So all of this is connected. And if you understand the platform well enough, you can talk to your child about, look, these are the controls, I've also seen it, these are the bad things, you need to keep away. Because we don't have that conversation. How many of us talk to our kids, okay, if you see something problematic online, what do? I don't think we've had that conversation with our kids. You, on your phone, if you see something problematic, what do? Do you stop? Or I won't ask any questions, quickly come and show that to me, and I'll tell you what else to do. Do we do that? Now that comes with nuance. That comes with understanding. That's not even technology understanding. That's, parenting 101. But infused with understanding kids are with platforms, kids are doing this, kids will be on digital. It's not only phones. I must be very clear on these aspects. There's games. I haven't even touched on that. There are other platforms kids use. So I think it would be unfair to just point at the smartphone when it comes to this, because there's myriad of ways kids interact with technology now. And sometimes they don't need a screen. And let that also sink in, right? So then the conversation is more nuanced. So I point back to your question, look, yes, you need to take an effort to teach you. Probably there needs to be vehicles where we teach, but that's very different to how we teach kids. Kids also need to be taught the same way that they were taught civics a long time ago in school, digital civics, lack of a better terminology.
Yes. Now, speaking of civics, can I ask you a bit of a psychological question?
Yes.
You're not a psychologist, but you understand the psychology of social media. We see many adults, perhaps my age.
No, you're awfully young. I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
Who, when they're in company, they are very polite, they behave normally, and then they get on social media and they become different animals altogether. Abusive. I mean, you know, it's so many different aspects of their hidden personality seem to come out. But what they don't seem to understand is that's public space. So if you scold someone in bad language on Facebook, everyone sees it. So how does that, what's the psychology behind that? Because I can't figure it out. I mean, when I write something on social media, I try to, you know, even get the spelling and grammar correct, because, I mean, that's my profession. I can't let that down. So I can't use bad language, certainly. How is it that even adults fall prey to this trap of social media?
You've answered your question in your question. You said when people are with each other, you and I, we're polite to each other. Why? Because in person, there are norms and societal standards that you have to follow, right? So thus, you are more measured in your approach. Social media has, in certain platforms, they've become like the town square. In other platforms, I don't know, it's like a shouting match, but leave that aside. I think for most people, the lack of any blowback coming their way, and probably they feel those social norms are stripped away and they can say whatever they want, and there's very little consequence. And the human brain, you know, attaches consequence to social norms at times, and thus, obviously, you're not in a social setting physically. So you may feel you can be a little more cavalier in your comments, or cavalier in how you attack somebody. And we've seen this time and time again. Media personalities, you know, people who are of a certain caliber. We've seen this. But the point remains, I think you feel no consequence of your actions. I could call you something absolutely terrible, and I won't have any consequence. Now try doing that to your face, then I have to see your social expression, your facial expression rather. I have to see the disappointment. I might not have the courage to do that, but behind a screen I can do whatever I want. People think they're very courageous, they're not.
Interesting. But there are those of us who understand that, you know, what you're telling the world is what you're telling the world, whether you're doing it.
Indeed, because you have a higher grade of literacy when it comes to this.
Well, I don't know. I think there are a lot of much smarter people than me who seem to turn into something else online.
IQ and EQ are two different things.
There we go. That's the answer. That's the answer. Right. So let me ask you another question. You mentioned that Australia got into the social media control aspect quite early, and other countries are following suit. Why is it that some countries are fast on this, others are very slow?
Institutions, to be fair.
Okay.
I'll take the
I'm discounting countries which are, let's say, in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and they have other issues.
Indeed,
right?
indeed.
But
more pressing matters.
Yes, more pressing matters.
So I think Australia is a great example, and I think this stems from the fact that there's a lot of expat Sri Lankans who are in Australia, and they're like, okay, if Australia can do it, why can't Sri Lanka? So let me explain a little bit. Australia has something called E-Safety Commission, which is a fabulous regulator.
Which we don't.
Which, now, if you ask me, what's the sister institute in Sri Lanka? There's no one. There's TRC, but TRC serves a very different purpose. There's NCPA, which serves a very different purpose. Then whom are we talking about here? Australia E-Safety Commission, and please, I encourage everyone watching this broadcast, visit the E-Safety Commission website. It has excellent resources when it comes to not only the kids, actually parents. How do you talk to your child about screen time? How do you talk to your child about cyberbullying? There's fabulous material. Unfortunately, it's only in English. And actually, something we are considering is if we can talk to the Australian government, if you're watching, maybe get some of that and translate that into the two local languages, Sinhala and Tamil here. That will be incredibly useful. Honestly, more useful than what we're trying to do here. Because honestly, that content in front of educators and probably parents and guardians will be much more helpful. But they had a very good regulator. They had trained people who were in the space of online safety, and they've been doing it for quite some time. And thus, they're able to talk to these platforms and say, look, these are the practices. And they're saying, look, we understand that these practices you continued, thus we want you to control it. Now, let me ask you another question. I think it's very popular now. Okay, kids under 16, let's say 16 is the age, I think everyone is settling around, France, Australia, everyone. Ban them from platforms. Can I ask you, Dinesh, how? How does one go about it?
So that's very difficult, isn't it?
No, is it a law?
It's
is it a law? No, I'm honestly asking this question because I get this a lot. Is it a law? Does the Parliament of Sri Lanka tomorrow pass a law saying, okay, under 16 ban? Okay, good. How do we implement that?
Well, you would then, that law would have to require Meta and so, other social media platforms over whom we have no,
you see
no control whatsoever, who would basically tell us, in no uncertain terms that we are not that important. And that
it's
would
not
be a
about
blow to our national pride.
Exactly, yes. It will dent our pride. But actually, it's not even that. I mean, to be fair, I've had several discussions with Meta on different policy matters. I've been very fortunate to engage with them in different platforms. Their point is, look, you have this. You're telling us to, let's say, 16, hypothetically. You have a bad law like the Online Safety Act, which you also wanted us to follow, which we had our reasons not to, and we still have our reservations on. And to be fair, that act can't even be activated fully is because the platforms in no uncertain terms have said, look, we don't agree to this.
And they said so before the bill was passed.
Exactly. If you remember 2023, there was immense pressure on that government at the time not to even go ahead with this. So they would not take this as an isolated legislation. They will look at the constellation of legislations around technology and say, look, your track record is not great, and now you want us to do this. Perhaps we should have a conversation. I think that's fair as far as Meta is concerned. Then, honestly, I go back to the previous point. Do we have a regulator for it? Do we have an institution for it? Do we have people, apart from enforcement, which we can't do? The platforms themselves have to technically enforce it. What else can we do? So then is the education and the capacity building part. See, okay, tomorrow a child is being cyberbullied. What do we do about it? Do they come and tell a parent, a guardian? Can they tell their teacher? Are they equipped to handle this?
So what you're saying is that we need greater awareness creation.
Absolutely. And we need not only greater awareness, we need an ecosystem to capture this. Because I'll tell you right now, because I get professionally consulted on this, it's a lot of kids getting cyberbullied right now. And they really don't want to tell their parents. They really don't want to tell a teacher because they feel they won't understand. Which means we've done a terrible job at this.
But even long before social media, that was the case. If you were bullied in school, in your class, you wouldn't, well, some children would go and tell their parents, but many would not.
But the signs would be there and you would understand that one.
Well, yes, you come home with a bloody nose.
Exactly. And then, that's a bit of a tough conversation to have. Secondly, this can be done at scale on social media. It's not 5 people bullying you. It's maybe 100. That's the problem.
A severe problem, indeed.
And it then creates the mental breakdowns that we're talking about, which we see in kids. So, I mean, again, I'm not saying no controls or not keep the platforms accountable, but I'm saying certainly shall we be a little more nuanced about this.
It's not black and white.
It isn't. And we shouldn't treat it that way.
Yes. So, on that point, and we're almost out of time, but let me ask you about a judgment in the state of New Mexico. Now, we spoke of the case which just started, 49 states, but there was another case which was concluded just a few days ago, where in the state of New Mexico, Meta was found to be at fault again with regard to children getting hooked on its platforms. And the judge in this case handed down a fine of $942 million on Meta. This is just one state.
9 times Sri Lanka's GDP. Just thought
you're hitting my national pride here. Hopefully, it will continue to grow. It's been growing over the past couple of years. Yes, right. But the judge also called Meta a public nuisance. Now that's an interesting point of view. In your opinion, is that a bit extreme, or is it a public nuisance?
Was it a public nuisance when it facilitated things like Daragale? It's subjective.
Well, if you ask the government, which was driven out of office,
yes, I suppose they will say yes, it is a public nuisance. Tell you only, well done. But see, I think this is not to be on the side of Meta, but it's a little subjective to call it a public nuisance. I think we should be a little more diplomatic in how we approach this and call things, because you have to understand, I point back to that, these platforms are helping in a way to move our economy.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. What would you do for the mom and pop store that's on Instagram that's selling cupcakes?
I mean, this allows, let's say, some small-time entrepreneur in Monaragala to sell his products all over the world, because the customers all around the world don't care whether he's in Monaragala or in Colombo 7.
Also, it lowers the barrier of entry. So gone are the days that you need a website or some fancy e-commerce platform. You can do it now with a page on Instagram. Reasonable payment integrations can be done. I'm not saying it's difficult, but it's not impossible, but you can do it. It's not straightforward, but you can do it. Then the fulfillment can be done via WhatsApp. And then there are other platforms can help you with the delivery. So roll back the clock for 20 years ago, this is not that easy. Getting the logistics sorted, getting a web front end or e-commerce platform plugged in. I mean, one of the biggest, I work a lot with entrepreneurs and in the innovation space. And, some time ago, they said, look, buying a payment gateway was very expensive. No longer. These platforms have come in and filled that void. So, again, public nuisance, I don't know, I'll be a little more careful. But yes, there are harmful elements in these platforms. We need to have a very clear conversation with them. I think even the government of Sri Lanka would be wise to put out a statement of intent to say, look, this is our policy position. We agree, we are open to engage with you, but we agree these aspects, unlimited scrolling, I think we agree that's a bad design that's embedded in these platforms. Dopamine inducing behavior, autoplay of videos. So there are stuff like that we feel, you need to look at. And we can't do it alone. Now, coming back to the point, us doing it alone is not sufficient. We have to find like-minded countries and we get together and say, look, as a collective, this is what we are saying. As a global south, this is what we are saying. This is our position. That adds weight, and that Meta can't ignore. Or on many of these platforms, I think it's unfairly we're talking about Meta. There's so many other social media platforms, those cannot ignore. Then it would be the tobacco moment. So I think firstly, we have to figure out, let's all work together, common policy position across these countries. Yes, let's talk to Australia, let's talk to France, ask them what their experience is. We have excellent diplomatic relations with both countries. Surely we can have this conversation.
Absolutely.
And then say, look, this is our policy position, which is consistent. Find other like-minded countries in the region, outside the region, same economic size as us, middle income countries, then get together. Start a movement. Maldives did the same. They are leading the pack when it comes to environmental sustainability and all of that. Sri Lanka can do that, surely, if they want to.
Very interesting thoughts indeed. It's been an intriguing conversation. Asela, Waidyalankara, thank you very much for joining me this evening. And I'm afraid we're out of time, but don't go away because the news is coming up next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.